Try to visualize your hometown or the city where you live. What comes to mind? I'm going to guess that buildings, parks, and monuments are part of this picture, and that street pavement is not. We're so used to streets dominated by asphalt and concrete that we've become blind to the earlier historic pavements that survive in cities across the country. And we've utterly forgotten the critical role they played in helping modernize and make our cities livable. For decades, people fought to save historic buildings as a vital part of our heritage. But they made no effort to do the same for street pavement. For a long time, I was no different. As an architectural historian, my job has been to get people to look up, to admire the beauty and significance of buildings. We've all been so busy looking up at the vertical expressions of our past that we've become blind to the remarkable heritage that exists in plain view under our feet. After years of teaching in a building on one of Savannah's downtown squares, I eventually noticed this large triangular pattern of blocks in front of the building and wondered, what is that doing there? At first, I thought it was a giant yield sign. But then I learned it was there for a much more practical reason, to keep the blocks oriented perpendicular to the turning wheels of traffic. My curiosity about these blocks has blossomed into a fascination, almost an obsession, to understand and uncover the rich and complex history of street pavement across the country. What I've discovered is that each city and town has its own local pavement identity, a kind of urban fingerprint unique to that place. From the materials used to how and where they were laid, cities and even neighborhoods can have a distinctive identity. In my opinion, pavement is our most democratic form of built heritage. It's accessible to everyone, and it bridges areas rich and poor. Indeed, there are enough historic paving materials surviving in cities across the country to provide a bridge to the past, helping us understand the struggle to make our cities livable. Try to imagine a time before street pavement, when all of our streets were dirt. No water mains, no sewers, no pavement, just dirt. Well, the problem of getting stuck in a muddy street evidently was common enough that it could be satirized, as in this view from San Francisco. But seriously, dirt streets pose a very real threat to the health and safety of the citizens of any given city. Muddy streets could impede the movement of firefighting vehicles at a time when devastating urban fires were commonplace. One needs only think of the Great Fire of Chicago. And imagine the impact of thousands of horses, mules, and dogs doing their business in the streets, the same streets you'd be walking in. Solving the pavement problem was part of a revolution that transformed the city during the 19th century. While skyscrapers became the most obvious symbols of this revolution, improving the infrastructure underfoot, as advocated by magazines like this one on the right, had a much more profound impact on people's lives on a day-to-day basis. So the story of pavement in America begins in the 18th century with cobblestones, which arrived in port cities as discarded ballast from ships. Now, these stones came from around the world. How do we know? Well, here in Savannah, We have proof. We have a stone from China, uniquely etched with Chinese characters. It started its life as a tombstone in 1798, and by the 1850s had arrived in Savannah. By that time, though, cobblestones were considered a crude and even barbaric form of pavement, ill-suited to the real needs of a modern city. So if cobblestones weren't the answer to the pavement problem, what was? Here was the challenge facing cities. And it depended on a city's geographic location, their budget, and even the function of any given street. And you had to decide what was most important for that street. Was it durability, smoothness, being quiet, or affordable? Since no pavement could be all of those things. Cities experimented with a bewildering variety of pavements, which municipal engineers documented in color-coded maps like this one you see from Washington, D.C. Wood blocks appeared to be a promising option. They were smooth and cheap and quiet. It's like magic. But in wet weather, they were slippery, and in southern cities, termites and humidity eroded them quickly. In the south, meanwhile, readily available oyster shells were also cheap and provided a smooth ride, but turned to clouds of annoying white dust. A more durable option were rectangular Belgian blocks, which were strong enough to take the heavy cartloads of waterfront and warehouse districts in cities like New York and Baltimore and other port cities. But Belgian blocks, they were bumpy, and worst of all, they were incredibly noisy under the metal hooves of horses. After 1880, vitrified bricks became the most popular and widely used pavement material in America. For the first time, here was a pavement that was durable and smooth. It's like magic. And unfortunately, they're heavy, so it made shipping them around prohibitively expensive. So brick manufacturing plants also appeared around the country, stamping their names into the bricks to declare their place of origin. So here's a brick with a distinctive sense of place, like these bricks from Ohio. But bricks could also be noisy, so much so that the residents of the small community of Morgan Park outside Chicago opposed the installation of bricks in front of their houses and fought the town council all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court. The development of modern asphalt in the 1920s was a game changer. Here was a material, a pavement, that was smooth, affordable, and sufficiently durable that it quickly became the pavement of choice and was spread over older pavements, but at the loss of local identity. But not all streets got covered. Take, for example, this pair of red brick streets and consider how they were saved. On the left is a street from a depressed area in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where evidently economic neglect has saved its bricks, while on the right, representative of many cities, wealth and elitism have saved the same bricks, as in Savannah, where Jones Street is among the city's premier addresses. From the 1970s onwards, heritage tourism has motivated the restoration of the oldest and quaintest pavement types as part of the revitalization of abandoned waterfront areas in cities like New York that you see here, and St. Louis and Baltimore. But outside such touristy areas, historic pavement has rarely been considered part of a city's heritage. Happily, there have been some exceptions. The residents of the German village area of Columbus, Ohio, not only fought to save their houses in the 1970s, but also the remarkable and extensive network of brick vitrified streets. When a city road crew came by and put asphalt down on those bricks, the neighbors literally took to the streets, brandishing garden hoses and shovels to remove the offending blacktop. In the 1990s, historians in Philadelphia compiled a remarkable survey of all the historic pavements throughout their city as the basis of a unique historic district, one on the theme of street pavement. One of the unexpected results of this thematic district was that residents in the poorer parts of Philadelphia were surprised to learn, hey, we're in an historic district? And for the first time, they felt like they were part of the city. These two examples from Columbus and Philadelphia illustrate the power of pavement to activate civic pride and define local identity. But such pride in most cities is powerless to stop the indiscriminate removal of this collective heritage. Even in Savannah, a city celebrated for its historic preservation movement, destruction occurs without protest. Recently, all of the cobblestones from one of the city's downtown ramps were removed, including that Chinese cobblestone, as part of an effort to replace it with concrete stamped to imitate cobblestones, as you see down at the bottom. So what can be done? Well, some cities have been proactive in saving and preserving their streets. In Orlando, Florida, for example, they've literally been scraping the asphalt away to reveal the brick streets beneath. And in Wilmington, North Carolina, just a couple of months ago, they passed an ordinance that will protect and restore their brick and stone streets. So this kind of heritage, whether for its heritage value, beyond its heritage value, historic pavement or their modern equivalents, like you see here, have the potential also to be a bridge to the future. These blocks provide texture that can help with traffic calming, as people instinctively slow down when driving on bumpy surfaces. The gaps between the blocks can allow water to percolate below, minimizing street flooding. And the patterns in the pavement can help people, especially the visually impaired, navigate sidewalks and crosswalks. And pavement, who would have guessed, can even be good for your health, as some researchers in Oregon discovered. Well, asphalt and concrete clearly have a place in our world. We should not allow them to have a monopoly over our streets at the expense of our heritage or our well-being. So in order to appreciate the distinctiveness, if you really want to appreciate the distinctiveness of where you live, just look down. Thank you.